Words of advice. I mean, there are so many different avenues to get into the business, right? But you need to
Hmm.
jump, you need to identify what you have done, your experience thus far, regardless of how vast or not it is, and leverage that moving forward. And one thing that I did well that was has allowed me to gain momentum this year is have conversations with investors and really stoke those fires so that when the deal does come along, they're ready to jump on it.
Welcome to this episode of the success journey of real estate investors. Hi, my name is Brooke Ceballos Pinedo, and I'll be your host for today. The goal of our show is to hear from deal makers that have closed their first deal, as well as to hear what Michael Blanc products or programs help them get there. So let's get to it. Today's guest is Nate Wenz. Hey Nate, how you doing?
Doing well, thanks, Brooke. Nate Vins, you're almost there.
Wait, no, what did I say? Nate Venz? Did I say Wenz?
Vins,
Oh
VENZ.
my
So
gosh, I didn't even confirm with you before. Oh my God,
no
I need my
biggie.
coffee. Can't tell if it's coming or going at this point.
Love it, Brooke. No biggie.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and let's see how you're currently doing in your investment business.
Yeah, so everything's going great. Having a great time and having a lot of success this year. And obviously, this ties in with the whole Michael Blanc program. I've enjoyed all of the information and the mentors and all my experiences with him thus far. I've closed. Let's see, I'm about to close on my 472nd door this year, and my original goal was 500. So I've got a little bit of
You're
ways
almost
left to go,
there.
but yeah, almost there. So hopefully one solid more acquisition and I can meet my goal for this year. But working on my third one, and it's 228 units out in West Texas, and so that's what's going to take me up to the 470 some odd mark. And I'm just trying to ride a wave of momentum that
I
I've been
love it.
working for.
I love it. So how did you hear about Michael Blanc? How did you hear about him? What got you started?
Yeah, so I heard about him, and I mean, obviously, there are tons of programs out there, but I heard great things about his syndicated deal analyzer, the SDA. Obviously, the underwriting is the meat and potatoes to all these deals, and you got to have that, and you got to have it correct to make all these acquisitions go the right way. So I heard through the grapevine that some guys I had done deals with, or at least networking with, were using the SDA from Michael Blanc, and so I jumped into that, and then eventually joined his mentorship group, and that's kind of how I got turned on to Michael's program.
Okay. So with Michael Blanc's program, because what part of it do you feel really accelerated your success? Is there a specific part of it that you felt that really, got you to your first deal?
I'm a little bit, I guess, different than most of the mentees in that I actually closed my first deal about a week before I joined his mentorship program. So I was working
Okay.
on my second one, but
Okay.
still tons to learn. I mean, always learning. So I jumped into it because I wanted to scale and I wanted to grow from my first one and in the second, third, and hopefully 15 more, and so that was kind of my thought process in jumping in was, I've done it once, but I would like to do it bigger and better and with more knowledge. And I think that's a super important part to have, no matter who you jump into, groups with, and is that you need to be aligned with that. And I saw tremendous growth potential with Michael's program, along with the other folks that I've been in the mentorship program with. So that's kind of how that developed.
So it sounds like it was the relationships that helped you scale, or would you say it was the online education that helped you scale?
The online education was fantastic, and I review it all the time. It's a fantastic reminder, but I think that I've personally found the most value from the relationships, in that so like I said, I closed my first one right before I jumped on, but it wasn't maybe a month and a half later, through networking with the other folks in the program. And that's how I was able to jump into my second one within, like I said, a month and a half later, because I connected with some guys who they were local here in the North Texas area. I'm based in Dallas, and turns out they were based in Dallas, and they had a need, and I was able to fill that. And so that's what allowed me to jump into my second deal, was creating that relationship and being able to partner up with some guys that had you know got the value from Michael's program, but also able to jump into the whole system and develop a relationship from there.
So couple questions. One, were you able to meet them in person and then you progressed your relationship, or were you able to do the entirety of this deal of trust just over video and networking remotely?
We were able to meet up in person after we had spoken at the time it wasn't Slack. We were using something, or no, it was Slack.
You're
We had moved
right.
over to something else.
Mhm.
But regardless, it was on the computer. We were virtually met. And then I think it was probably about a week later, the gentleman said, "Hey, I'm going out to a property tour. Why don't you come out here and we can shake hands, walk the property, and go from there." And so I said, "Absolutely, I'll be there." So met him, we walked the property, and yeah, it was a great meeting. And so we developed it physically from there, and we've been able to keep in touch, and hopefully we'll be able to do deals in the future. By the way, these guys named Adam Lance,
Yeah.
Adam and Lance on the apartment buying guys. Have you met them, Brooke?
I've heard of them. I have
Okay.
heard, we have some amazing people. I know the name. So it's nice to be able to, give people kudos when it is due, right? And
Absolutely.
to top that off, do you have and maybe we'll save this for the end because we like to hear your website, where they can find you as well.
Sure.
So I'm gonna rewind really quick. So what would you say to people who are on the fence? So now that you've done what you've done, you've had your first deal, you connected with people remotely, you've taken the online courses. What would you tell somebody that's humming and hawing? They're kind of on the fence. They don't know if this is for them, if they should get into this sector. What are some words of advice that you would provide to them based off of your experience?
Words of advice. I mean, there are so many different avenues to get into the business, right? But you need to jump, you need to identify what you have done, your experience thus far, regardless of how vast or not it is, and leverage that moving forward. And one thing that I did well that has allowed me to gain momentum this year is have conversations with investors and really stoke those fires, so that when the deal does come along, they're ready to jump on it. If you're starting to raise capital when you have a deal, then it's too late. I'm sure you hear that all the time, but again, that's how I've been able to develop momentum this year, is having conversations early and often with investors, potential investors. I mean, they just need to be continuous. And if you don't have a deal in hand, then you need to talk about one that you've done, or a potential deal, because that needs to be ready to go. So with the Michael Blanc program, I think that it's just allowed me to bounce ideas off of, like, the mentorship group. We've got weekly calls, and you can jump in, you have dialogue with those guys and gals who are doing the same thing, and kind of develop a game plan from that. And you can set goals and achieve those goals, and they're right there to help you do that. So that's a little bit how I've gotten started.
I love it. I love it. So you touched on something that I want to speak on you about. You advise about raising capital, how so many people because a lot of us are doing this with other people's money, right? You have a financial fiduciary responsibility. And that being said, were you comfortable talking about money? This came up on my previous discussion, where some people have a hard time speaking about hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, and they have this kind of unconscious bias towards money, like, oh my God, 34 million, 36 million, I'm asking this much money, or they're spending from their own pocketbooks or whatnot. Does that make sense? Were you comfortable speaking about large amounts of money and requesting this from people? And if you were or you're not, how did you get comfortable in speaking with your investors and speaking on about large amounts of money?
Definitely, great question, and I've heard that a lot from guys that are a little bit greener as well, and it's a valid concern. But I lean on my experience. I've come from the sales background. I've bought and sold land in the oil and gas business for many years. I've been in medical sales for many years, so I've purchased or sold to a wide variety of folks, and I think that's what allows me to have a little bit of confidence to go in and say, hey, you're not asking somebody for money. You're presenting them with an opportunity for an incredible investment. So I think they need to, these guys that we're talking about, these theoretical people, they need to realize what it is they're discussing. And what they're discussing is an incredible opportunity to invest in an asset class that's not going anywhere. Rents aren't going down. That just doesn't really happen. So it's a vehicle for people with some capital set aside to create passive income. Mailbox money is what we're looking for. That creates freedom, financial freedom, and keep that in mind when you're talking to folks, because that's worth putting a lot of money into, something that can allow your future to open up. So I try to keep all of that into perspective. So I guess back to your original question of how do you talk about these large sums of money? Pretend like they're not large sums of money. Talk about it in a dollar versus $100,000 or $1 versus $1 million. It's all relative. The people you're talking to, they're aware of what it took to get it, the value of it, and all that. So if they have that value set on their hard work and how they earned it, they're going to have the same mindset in how they value it in an investment, and they want these types of investments.
You hit the nail on the head. So you also said something earlier that I want to stretch out to. Speaking to your investors, not only when you have a deal, but just to keep those lines of communication open, be the trusted resource, etc. And I know we're hearing this all over the place. And I know Michael has been asked this question numerous times, but I still want to hear your perspective and how you're having these conversations. So with inflation and the economy the way it is, and some of these deals being so inflated, and we feel that sometimes the sellers aren't really aware that, hey, you realize with interest rates and all that's happening, and you still want top dollar for this property. I've noticed some of our investors are they're clutching their purses a little bit, and even me, for one, I feel I'm having a hard time getting them to realize, hey, now is as good as time as any. Our underwriting is solid. How are you educating your investors that regardless of the state of the economy, this is better than keeping your money in the bank?
I try to generalize it, to be honest. And I heard something recently from a friend of mine and syndicator said, you need to be able to explain these deals to a golden retriever. and I completely agree, because it might be oversimplified, sure, absolutely, but at the same time, a lot of the people that you're talking to, a lot of potential investors, most all of them have full-time jobs that aren't in this space. And so if you start jumping into the granular details of hundreds of a percentage of an IRR, or what all these interest rates are doing and how it's going to be affected, a lot of times those are glaze over. And so you need to start at a real high level and give the overarching look of it. And something that I do is I try to take my own advice, start high level, and then I'll get as granular as they'd like to. But in order for that to develop, you need to let them kind of lead the charge. And that's something that I made plenty of mistakes, still making them, and hopefully less and less. But some of the first conversations that I had with my investors, who some of them invested in every deal I've had thus far, so I guess did something right. But I also learned a lot from those conversations, in that I jumped into the granular. I wanted to prove to them that I knew exactly what I was talking about. I knew these numbers forwards and backwards, and this was a great deal, so on and so forth. And they just kind of were looking at me like, what in the world is Nate talking about? And I said, okay, let me back up. Do you know what a syndication is? You know, and let's start there. And so I'm learning from myself in that, hey, start at a high level, build a baseline, and you know, sometimes people don't want the granular. They want you or me to handle the granular details. Now, somebody who's more familiar with the investment profile of these types of deals, sure, let's jump into it. But I think you know, you need to identify where your investors are with their knowledge on multifamily syndications.
No, you are 110% correct. 110% correct. Because I think sometimes, and I'm in a sales role as well. I've been in sales, marketing, negotiations for approximately 20 years. And what that has taught me is always, I don't think they have an acronym, is it WIFM? What's in it for me? And I think that's what we have to do for the investors, you know, tell them what's in it for them, you know, what's the minimum, what's the cash on cash, what's the whole time, etc. Is this a value add? Am I going to have to wait a couple months before I see any types of returns, right? Is it preferred? So I think that is excellent, is kind of focusing on what's in it for them. And then if they have questions, they're going to ask you. And so if they want to know that granular micro level, and then that's a good time for you to shine and you can provide that information, right?
Exactly.
So another question I have that you also discussing earlier today was a team, right? So you met people online, you met them in person. What do you feel is the most important in building a team? Because I speak with so many people who feel that they can go at this alone. And I go, that's absolutely phenomenal. If you can KP and raise equity or fund it yourself and do the due diligence and you can, you know, and you have a second attorney, high five, man. But for those of us who are not Superman, what do you recommend? What should you look for when you're looking for a team to take down these deals?
Fantastic question. I think that, I know that networking is, I mean, the end all be all, especially in this business, in that you have to network your butt off. I mean, nonstop. I've been to countless seminars and meetings and get-togethers. I just got back from a meeting just a minute ago. It's just constant handshaking, smiling, and kissing babies. What I say. So you have to, and you get better at that. You get better. You know, at first it's not super comfortable for a lot of people. You know, some people have the skill set. Some people need to develop it a little bit more. And so you get better and better at it, but you need to put yourself out there and you need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, I didn't make that up, but I like the saying, and because if you're not putting yourself in a place to be uncomfortable, that means you're not growing. And so back to building a team, you need to meet a whole lot of people and pick their brains on a whole myriad of subjects so that you can understand kind of what you need. I've been super lucky to meet some great guys in the space, guys and gals, and I like to develop a relationship with them. Whether if I meet them virtually, I like to sit down face to face, either have coffee or lunch or dinner, or have a beer, whatever, you know, whatever makes sense, and get to know them. Like let's talk about you and your family and your values and your morals before we jump into something else, and before we talk about business at all. I heard recently, I forgot where it was, but in other cultures overseas, you know, we're both in the States, but overseas, that there's an average of 7 to 8 hours of relationship building before business is ever discussed. And I thought that was super powerful. I may not go 7 or 8 hours, but I definitely try to put in several hours before we talk about business, because I want to be aligned outside of the business so that we can be aligned inside of the business. And so once you find those folks that kind of align with you outside of the business, okay, let's start talking numbers. Let's talk deal structures. Let's talk on how you, you know, do your underwriting. Let's how you property manage, how you asset manage, so on and so forth. So I think that's vital, at least with how I've gone about it. The networking part.
I love that. And I think, I don't know exactly what the statistics are, but it says if you are at least showing up, you already beat like 90% of the people, right? And so
Absolutely.
many people, right? And so many people think that they can always be on video. We got comfortable being on video and then, oh, well, that's it. But you need to do more than that. So I'm glad that you said that about showing up, breaking bread in a brew, or whatever it is that gets you going. That's kind of my lingo too. I love that. And the morals, right? I want to make sure that outside of this, you're also a good person. This is not just business. And I realize some people don't realize that. And I've had a conversation with somebody that I decided not to work with them because I saw things and the personal side that I'm like, you know what, when you take on a deal, you're married to these people, sometimes it's 5 years, 7 years, sometimes longer. And if you aren't in your personal life showing your moral, I'm going to question your business ethics. Okay. So excellent point. I'm on the same page as you. So that being said, with all of the success and everything that you've had with Michael Blanc, how much and how important would you say having a mentorship is? I speak with other people who see that I sign up for different mentorships. And in my perspective, if you won't invest in yourself, how do you expect other people to invest with you, right? So what is your perspective on mentorship and how do you feel that accelerates, or maybe you don't feel like it really helps you, but you're obviously in the same group as me, and it's helping you.
That's
So
right.
yeah, what is your insights on mentorships? What's your perspective? And
Absolutely. I think you need to lean on mentorship. Like, so let me kind of tie this into like my first few deals. And this is for anybody. This isn't just me. The way that you get started in this space, unless you're superhero, like we talked about earlier, unless you're Superman, you need to leverage other people's experience to do just about anything in this space. I mean, not many people have $20 million laying around that they can do it. And even if they did have a big lump sum of money to do the deal, a lot of brokers and banks and everybody else that is involved in a syndication and a deal, they may not give it to you just because you don't have experience. They're not going to give it to you just because you have a big chunk of money sitting there. They might, but probably not. They're going to go with somebody who's done it X amount of times. So you can leverage your relationships, you leverage your partnerships, you leverage your mentorships. I've had a ton of people ask me, well, Nate, what experience do you have? I mean, maybe this was before I've done a couple deals, but said, well, I've invested in myself in this mentorship group. I've invested in myself with the countless books that I've read, with the countless seminars and meetings and meetups and relationships that I've been building for many years now, not to mention the investor conversations that I've had. You need to learn and pull from all of these experiences. And the mentorship is just another feather in your hat to say, I'm fully committed. I'm fully in this, and I'm going to make it work with or without this person or this person. Like, okay, next guy up. And if you're in sales, Brooke,
yeah,
you're almost looking for a no, because the sooner you can get to a no, the sooner you can get to a yes.
yes.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of cross pollination with all these phrases, not to be cheesy or anything, but it is true. That, and I told I was capital raising recently for this deal, and one of the GPs called me and said, "Hey, how's it going, Nate?" I said, "It's going great." And it's not going great because I'm getting a ton of capital commitments, doing fine on it. But like that day, I had gotten a whole bunch of no's, but I was still gassed up because I'm like, hey, got a ton of no's. And you know why I'm pumped about that? Because I know a yes is all right on the horizon. And I was right. I was right about that. And it's not a me thing. It's anybody who has that ability to get past a no to get to a yes. So keep your head on right, and it's just around the corner.
I love it. It's a numbers game, right?
Absolutely.
And I know we're getting down to the last few minutes. I'm going to say one more thing, and then I have a wrap-up question for you. So you reminded me of something that Alex Hermosi said. You know who Alex Hermosi is?
Sounds familiar. Remind me.
He's absolutely phenomenal. He's on YouTube. He has a major following. He became super successful from I believe it was a health and fitness. He had a niche company that was to smaller body or gyms, and he helped grow and scale them, right? Well, he spoke on a Tony Robbins virtual presentation, and he said, hey, you guys, don't invest in the S&P, invest in the S and me. Talk about the stock market, stop investing in the stock market, invest in yourself because you know what you're capable of. You're not going to give up on your dreams. And when you financially put money down, you're going to work harder for that, right? So trust in yourself, get it done. So I like that. It really rang true with me when everybody pushes stock market, and he said, forget the S&P, do S&Me. So I thought that was cool, right?
I love it. Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you two questions. So one, I'm going to ask you if you can recommend any podcasts, books, credible sources for our audience that you helped your success, as well as give me a word or a phrase that describes who you are now or where you're going in your journey.
Absolutely. When I first got started, I guess 3.5, close to 4 years ago now, the first book, it wasn't the first book I read. It's the first book that I really, it's got highlighted and underlined pages throughout. It was the best ever syndication book, Joe Fairless. And it walked you through, this is how you do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, just steps. And I was like, I really dug into that book, and I reference it often still. But there are countless books out there. And if you ask my wife, I've got a stack of books next to my bed, some that I've read that I reference weekly and some that I need to get to read. So our house is quickly filling up so with books. So much so that I bought a Kindle, and those can hold hundreds, and it's real thin. So maybe
there you go. That. Can you repeat that book one more time? So it was the best syndication book by Joe Ferris. Is that correct?
I believe it's called The Best Ever Syndication Book by Joe Fairless.
Fairless. Okay. I can't pronounce people's names today. Okay.
Yeah, Fairless, Less. Yeah.
Okay. I know the name. Okay.
That one will get you going. Like I said, don't stop reading. Don't stop getting educated. And that's what I do. That's what all the super, experienced syndicators are doing. Anybody in any space. That's, I don't care if you're LeBron James and playing basketball. He doesn't stop shooting free throws. It's consistent work. You keep learning, you keep growing, and keep networking, and things are going to happen. That goes for podcasts as well. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of podcasts, and I like to listen to all different kinds on syndication. So I'd say just jump on there and pick one, because you're going to pick something up. I don't care who it is. I could plug 30 of them, but jump on there. I listen to at least one podcast every single day, and they're typically different podcasts. And so definitely take advantage of all the free content out there.
There's a ton. So be a lifelong learner.
Absolutely.
And then what's a phrase? So what's a good action phrase? So for example, when I spoke with, oh goodness, what did she say she was? I think it was a tenacious huntress or something. She goes, so I want to recall, I think that's what she said. She goes, one gentleman has a word of the year that he helps guide his success. And so when she thought, I think it was tenacious or ferocious, something along that line, which was his. So then she looked for other words, and she was, you know what? I'm a tenacious, huntress. I'm nonstop, and you can't get in my way. And she allows that to guide her through her success. Is there any words or phrases, just to throw it out there? I know this is ad hoc, and I always tell people there's no preparation before these calls. We just wing it and have it fly, right?
That's right.
So anything comes to mind that describes your journey, or give me a word, give me a phrase.
I got 2 words, 2 adjectives for you. They come top of mind, and it would be hustle and momentum. And hustle, I mean, I wake up every day at 4:30. I hit the gym super early, and that's one thing that I check off my list. I've typically had 2 meals, a workout, and onto my 15th email by the time it's 7:30 in the morning, which is great, because that's a fantastic way you're basically doubling the amount of time you have in your day when you wake up, well before the sun. By the time 9 a.m. rolls around, I've had close to 4 hours worth of work, which is half of a work day. Okay. That puts me ahead right there. So if I don't get anything done the rest of the day, I got to work out. I got a couple of good healthy meals in. But guess what? I don't, that gives you the momentum to really start checking things off throughout the rest of your day, the rest of your week. So, but by the time Friday, Saturday comes around, you've accomplished so much. And that's just the momentum that you need to keep rolling. Like, well, I put this into place last week, and now I can do this because this happened. And that's all from hustle and momentum. I can't stress that enough, how much it's helped me in my life and what I'm doing right now with real estate, multifamily syndication. So it's something that I like to wake up and get out of the way first thing in the morning. It's just, and it's something that you don't need to think about, because sometimes there's gonna be some days that you're not motivated, that you don't want to put in the hustle, you're not creating momentum. But if you can make that conscious decision to say, hey, I'm going to get up and I'm going to make it happen today, even if it's something small. Small things lead to big things, and then just a snowball rolling downhill. So I would say those two words. Hopefully that's a little bit of what you were looking for.
Yes. Yeah. Beat the sun up, right? That's what I got
Yeah.
out of it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So how would you like to say goodbye to everybody? How would you like to wrap this up? If you can give a message to everybody, let's hear it. We're a few minutes over.
No
What
problem.
could you say to everybody listening?
I'd say if you fully grasp what this multifamily real estate syndication is about, then you're probably just as motivated and driven as I am. Get out there and do it. Everybody can do it. If you put the right steps in place, you work hard, you hustle at it, and you're genuine about it. This isn't a get rich quick scheme by any means. This is build wealth slowly type of business. And so if you're interested in it, go full force at it. But I think that goes for anything, just to take a step back. It doesn't have to be this business. If you're interested in something and it motivates you, and go full force. I mean, it's not a 9 to 5 clock in, clock out. This needs to be around the clock, whatever it is, to make it happen. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that inspires somebody to go out and do what they're looking to do. They've got the ability with the internet and networking and everything that we have access to. There's no reason not to do it.
I love it. So Nate Benz, everybody, where can we find you? What's your Instagram? What's your website? Let's hear it.
So
how can they connect?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. It's My Multifamily Investments. The website, mymultifamilyinvestments.com. Instagram at My Multifamily Investments. Twitter, My Multifamily. Yeah, anything My Multifamily Investments, you can find me there. My email is nathan@mymultifamilyinvestments.com. Happy to connect with everybody to talk the business. So thanks for having me on, Brooke. This is fantastic.
Thank you, Nate. You rock. I learned a lot from you, and I appreciate your time. And so stay cool out there, and I look forward to collaborating with you in the future.